no idea. But it says there are. Hello.
Hi.
Who put me in this box? How do I get out? It says there are 5 participants. It says there are 5 participants here.
I'm here twice.
Angela, oh, you're here twice. That's probably about what it'll be then. So what are we going to do tonight? Who's got stuff? I've got stuff. My stuff is massive at the moment.
Oh, right on. Let's start with you then.
Well, I'd rather not, but anyway.
Okay.
I've been sitting in my circle for my days. I have an open viewing on my home on Saturday, and we've had like 3 weeks of rain non-stop. So I've been running around the garden trying to get it all ready and look pretty for Saturday. And I've deferred my healing, which I know I tell you guys never to do.
Oh, wow.
Usually I'll stop in the moment and I'll do it like right in the moment when the emotionality of it is raw, you know, because that's when it's the most honest and the most, you have the most integrity for prayer then. But this week I've had, and I'm just talking in the past here for a second, but it might be helpful. This week I've had a great bird's eye view of looking at the surface story and the symbolic representation that has as an idea of what my relationship with God is, right? So, which is what it always represents anyway. But this week it was completely obvious, and there was a lot of devastation in the form of sorrow and longing and all of that stuff, you know. And I remembered last week, I think in our Zoom, we were talking about the longing of the Father for the Son, right? Which Jesus talks about quite prolifically in the Course, how God longs for his Son and vice versa. And so this week, because that's what I was teaching, I guess, last week, this week, up it all came, which is how this works. But having been fairly vigilant for that teaching and having that moment with Doug as well was very helpful. And I know it's very easy to gloss over things that come along because the mind is habituated to just sidestepping everything that's really actually useful and helpful, and creating its own story or its own agenda around whatever any emotions might be that show up during the day, you know, and usually either pushing them down or coping with them with a drink or something like that. But this week it was very raw and open, and even a dummy like me couldn't miss it. It was really obvious. So I've been sitting with that, and I sat this morning very early. I was up at about 3 o'clock, and I made a circle, like in my mind. I sat there in my circle and just sat with all this stuff and the sorrow. My God, like, if you want to call it something for a second, it's like I would call it sorrow, like just that deep, mournful kind of where there's an absence, you know, like where something's gone, you think you've lost something or all that sort of thing. So I'm sitting there thinking I've lost something, trying to focus on it without making an association out of it, and allowing it to be symbolically representing my relationship with God, which is like an idea of separation in my own mind, something, you know, like it always links to a block. If you sit with it for a second, it'll always link to a block. So there's the whole idea that the separation occurred is embodied in what I've been going through this week in a very tangible, obvious way. Usually these things are kind of hard to see. They get, like when you first start doing the course, you know, and you first start doing those lessons, it's obvious how arrogant and ignorant and everything you are. You know, it's just very, very obvious because you have the example of a perfectly healed mind that Jesus is presenting as the Christ mind. And then he's like, but you do this. Here's God mind creating, and here's you listening to the ego. It's like, how did I get so far down that track? You know, I must need some mind training. Thankfully, I've got 365 lessons. So, and then of course, as you go through the lessons, as you proceed through the workbook, if you're doing those lessons properly, you get to a point where it becomes harder and harder. The denial seems to become more and more subtle, but accordingly, running parallel to that, your association with the Holy Spirit, or your what would you call it? Your relationship with the Holy Spirit is increasing as a kind of like you're ever kindling it along and sort of tuning in better and all this sort of stuff. So as your denial becomes more subtle and harder to find, not that it's harder to find, but it slips around the edges. I don't know how to talk about that. It's sort of like the ego starts to realize what it is you're trying to do by relinquishing your allegiance to it. And so it likes to taunt you from the sidelines. And so instead of everything being completely obvious and in your face, it tends to sort of be back here somewhere in the back of your head. And you have these thoughts that you're in the process of taking responsibility for them, but the ego doesn't want you to be able to find them, right? So which is why Jesus says, like, seek for the blocks and find them. You've got to find them. It's a conscious seeking. But of course, throughout the day, any troubling thoughts that come along, you know, you use them in your lessons, but it gets kind of harder to find them. And if you sit with lesson 10, say, where you're specifically processing the thoughts in your head for a minute or two, right? You try doing that same exercise when you get to about lesson 200. Try repeating it. And it's like, oh, there's not so much stuff going on in my head, right? And you're kind of surprised in a joyous way. But also there's not so much stuff going on in there because it's quieter and it's harder to hear and harder to pinpoint. So there's more vigilance required. So, but this week it's like a whole chunk of stuff that perhaps I've missed it or I haven't wanted to look at it before. It's come up and I have no choice but to sit in it and go through it. And I haven't done it yet. I literally haven't had a minute to do it. I tried to do it this morning at like 4 o'clock and it was too forced. Like there was no flow to it. I didn't feel it. I was like yawning and like, it's like, no, this is not a good time. And so I've just deferred it to the Holy Spirit. It's like, all right, I know this stuff is here. I'm just going to let you do it. But it's like the Holy Spirit, there's a bit in the Course where Jesus says, you must look upon these things with the Holy Spirit, right? I want to look upon it. I can feel it. I can sense it. It's been coming up emotionally and like sticking me in the gut and all this sort of stuff. And the story relates to separation on the physical plane, a relationship that I've been out of now for 1.5 years. But all of a sudden, there's a whole package coming up for it. And but I know that the story about the relationship on the physical level isn't it. It's what that represents about my relationship with God that I want to look at. And so tonight, before I go to bed, if I get a chance, or maybe we'll do it here. Maybe we'll do it in the thing. But yeah, it's been thick and ugly and pretty like full on. So, but that's good. I mean, you want something to be happening. You don't want to go through a whole week and just be like tiptoe through the tulips and nothing devastating happens. Because it's like we're supposed to be looking at stuff, you know, Tina. I saw that glance. We're supposed to be actively looking at stuff and searching our mind for hidden thoughts, searching our mind for particular things, you know, which is why when you teach this, and you should be about teaching this, right? When you teach this, you teach what you need to hear. You teach what you need to learn. So I teach what I need to learn. So if I've noticed that I've got something coming up during the week, or if I notice that a particular situation has triggered me or whatever during the week, there's always going to be something. I'll teach through that so I can hear it, right? It's one thing to say, oh, there's an opportunity for forgiveness, right? And to let it go. But it's like, what is it in my mind that's manifesting that in the first place? Let me get to the root cause of this. It's obviously a reflection of my belief in separation. Right? I want to go as deep as I can with it. Now, any trigger, any block, anything that upsets you is the tip of an iceberg that, if you're honest, you can sit with it. And, you know, people say, oh, no, I'm okay. I'm fine. Doesn't bother me, whatever. It was just an accident. It was just something. But if you're actually honest and stop trying to fob it off, right, that'll be the tip of an iceberg. The tip appears in consciousness. The tip appears in the part of your mind, in your awareness of the part of your mind that you're actually capable of looking at, right? What you're unaware of is how big that iceberg is, right? Jesus talks about it as a thin veil over intense fury, right? Intense fury. So when you're walking around, oh, no, it doesn't matter. It's okay. It matters. It's not okay. It's horrible and ugly, and it goes deep. And that's where we want to be, because that's where the juice is. That's where the healing is. All right. Thinking of yourself as like a crusader, or thinking of yourself as a worker in the vineyard with Jesus, will give you the kind of impetus to want to take it on board. I've got to do this for my brothers. I've got to sit here and process this, because this is something that's still operational in me that I'm seeing the tip of. How long do I want to chip away at the tip of it rather than just, you know, do the whole thing? And so I draw my circle and I sit with that little tip of the iceberg, and I refuse to adjust from it. I refuse to try and say, oh, no, it's okay. I let it sit there, and whatever trigger it has, I let it be exposed. You know, so what comes up can be quite emotional. You may want to run, you may want to get out of the room, or just do anything other than sit there with that emotional load. But the Holy Spirit with you does the actual work, and your willingness to allow him to show you, what would you call it? How much integrity you need for the prayer of healing. All right. That's what we're trying to get at here. So it's like we can chip away forever at the surface, right? And I know for fact that it's scary to look under the surface and see how much anger and denial and all of that stuff is there. Nobody wants to do that. Right? Nobody wants to look at the shitty stuff. We all like the nice stuff about spirituality, where we remind each other how beautiful we are and we're children of God and all of that. And then when it comes to the purification of the mind, we tend to not want to focus on that too much, even though that's the most important part. That's the most important part, because that's the part that actually activates the release. And it's the release, it's the shift in consciousness that we're looking for. It's the holy instant that we want. Right? Now, the holy instant occurs in relationships. You'll see it, through an action of forgiveness, you'll have something change in a relationship with your family, friends, whatever. And you'll be like, how did that happen? That's a miracle, right? I prayed and something, I wanted to forgive myself for it. Something shifted. That's a miracle. But it's the same with the tip of the iceberg. The last thing we want to be doing is running around out here on the physical plane, healing, everyday healing, when in fact the course takes us internally, looking specifically at our thoughts very early on in the workbook, going from organizing things outside of ourselves, seemingly outside of ourselves out here in the dream, healing things there, seeing the shift in consciousness that can bring. And then let's bring it home, because it's quicker to do it in here. It's quicker to do it in my mind. If you sit for a minute in your mind and watch your thoughts, there's some crazy batshit stuff goes on in there. And all of it is useful for healing. You don't have to wait until that crazy batshit stuff in there that you're projecting out onto the world shows up for you to get the results of your own thinking with. You can heal it in here now. It's like, hang on a minute. let me look at this crazy batshit thought about whatever it is. And Holy Spirit, look at this with me. It symbolizes separation. I don't need it. I need a miracle, right? And let it go. And you can do that, like, not the words I use, but in the prayer of your heart, right? You do that again and again and again. And one of the practices that I really like is before you go to bed, just sit for 5 minutes, look at the day you've had, look at the places that didn't bring you any happiness or peace, look at those areas where you think I could have done better there, I could have responded more politely or more caringly or whatever, I was in a bad mood or whatever, and deal with it in here. Okay? Look at those triggers in your mind. Look at those triggers, because the next day, tomorrow, you're going to have to go back into that workplace, see those same people again, see your same family relations and all of that again. Do you really want to have to put yourself in a situation where you haven't dealt with it and you're going to project it again and defend yourself from whatever's going on again, just so that you get back to bed at the end of the day the next time around and there it is still again, you haven't dealt with it? You know? So it's like, it's much easier to deal with it when it's in the moment, but you don't have to. You can look at it in your thinking, right? Obviously, you can't not walk out into public and do things and talk to people and interact. And that's going to bring up an opportunity, because absolutely everything is an opportunity. Absolutely everything. From the minute you open your eyes in the morning to the minute you close them again at night. As soon as you walk out your front door, you see the postman, the milkman, whatever. I don't know if people have milkmans anymore. But you see somebody in the street, it's like, who do I see? Do I see the Christ, or am I seeing my brother, the milkman, or the postman, or the greengrocer, or whatever? Or am I seeing the Christ? You know, so the opportunity is with everybody. The opportunity is just like, it's so obvious. But the temptation or the ritualized responses that we maintain in here as a way of coping in the world, they tend to pop up first, right? The ego likes to speak first, which is why you need to prepare your day properly. It's like, before my feet even hit the floor, I'm sitting on the edge of my bed and I'm like, all right, Lord, today I want to have a peaceful day. And I tell myself the kind of day I want. I want to have a peaceful day. I want to remember that my brothers in Christ are the animating force of the images I see. And I don't want to be buying into the storytelling that goes on, right? And one little slip up can ruin your whole day, right? You'll be walking down the garden path and the old lady watering her flowers next door, right? And how's your day, love? You know, it's like, compared to what? You know, but the general response of, oh, my day's fine, how's your day? And instantly you're back in the dream, you're back in the storytelling, you're like completely null and voided that whole encounter. Let something else happen instead of the usual response. Old Mrs. Things watering, how's your day, love? And it's like, I love you. That's how my day is. And she'll be like, what? Like, let it be spontaneous. Let it be, whatever comes. Don't be afraid to express from the truth of you, the heart of you. You know, I love you guys. You guys are awesome. I know who you are behind those masks, like my mask and the whole thing. We can talk about it here because we have a Zoom room devoted to talking about it. But when you go out in the world and people are going to look at you and roll their eyes and there's going to be all these funny responses, they're useful too. But you can't just sit down with somebody at the corner store and go, oh, it's tough being the Christ in this world. They're going to look at you like, you might get one or two people, you know, older people that go to church, you know, and things like that, that'll probably give you a bit of sympathy. But in general, it's like, I've got to keep my finger here. I've got to take responsibility for my storytelling, for my footprint, for my projections and my the meaning I've given everything out there. Right? Otherwise, my whole day goes by and I miss the opportunity to be miraculous. I am the miracle. You are the miracle. It's like Gandhi said, be the change you want to see in the world. If it's not going to be you, who's it going to be? If you're not going to change things, if you're not going to step back from those pat responses and allow something miraculous and enlightening to come into that dark situation of repetitive monologue kind of nothingness, who else is going to do it? You're going to just continue on and talk about the weather with every person you meet. You're going to continue on and talk about recipes and, you know, like there's nothing wrong with that. But it's like, wouldn't you like to have a conversation about love? Wouldn't you like to have a conversation about learning to let go of fear? Wouldn't you like to have a moment of walking down the street knowing that you had that moment with the lady next door last week and there she is again and she's still smiling. She can't believe it. Every time she sees you now, she smiles rather than telling you the problem that she has with her cats. It's a really funny thing. I had a beautiful phone call yesterday from a guy in America. He's a Native American guy there, and he does a lot of drug and alcohol stuff on reservations. And he's been doing this work for like 30 years or something, and chronic alcoholic drug addict, long history of extreme violence, jail time and everything. He's one of these really hardcore kind of savior sort of guys. And he's recently found the course in the last 6 or 7 years, maybe longer. But he had I don't know what Native American reservations are like over there. If they're anything like our Aboriginal places over here, they're probably disgusting. But he was beaten up quite badly by some Indian elders or something, and he's in hospital at the moment. And he rang me on the internet to tell me the story, right? Now, as soon as he started telling me the story of what was going on for him, I knew the story was nonsense. Okay, the story doesn't exist. There is no world. There is nobody getting beaten up, nobody in hospital, nobody this, that, and the other, right? There's no Dave telling a story in a Zoom room right now, but I know that in my mind. Okay, so I'm listening. I'm waiting for the moment to be presented to allow something miraculous to occur. And this guy can talk more than me, right? This guy just talks and talks and talks and talks. And the story gets longer and longer and longer, even though the point of it could probably be told in about 2 sentences. But the story goes around and around and around to get to the end. And so I'm carrying my phone around like this, listening, doing all my jobs, because I knew this was going to be at least a 1-hour story, and it was. And I'm listening, and there was the repeating of it, telling the same thing again and again, and talking about people I have no clue who he's talking about. Anyway, finally we got to the point, and he goes, "Oh, you're not saying anything." And I said, "I'm just listening, brother." I said, "I'm just listening." And he said, "Oh, well, that's good." He said, "Because I want to ask your advice about this whole story that I'm telling you, because it's been in my head, you know," and like he's in hospital, so it's obviously quite an emotional, there's a whole package of stuff going on. And he said, "Well, I rang you for some wise words of wisdom and things like that." And I said to him, "I'll give you 2 words of wisdom. Nothing exists. That's it." And he started to want to tell me, "That's not useful. How's that useful to me? I'm in the hospital. I need something I can use here." And I said, No. Nothing exists. Sit in it for a second. Right? And because he'd been reading the course, if it was anyone who hadn't been reading the course, it would have been a waste of time dropping this little pearl of wisdom. Because he'd been reading the course for a few years, it jarred something in his memory about the course, that there is no world, the whole thing, and that the entirety of his story was based in the past and everything else like that. And he started laughing, right? He just started laughing. And then he wanted to tell me a story about how come he was laughing at the whole thing. I said, "No, stop telling me any story. Just stay in the nothing exists. Stay in that place for a second. And he went back to it and he started laughing more, and he kept laughing. And he said to me, I don't know why I'm laughing so much. Right? He said, I can't tell you why I'm laughing. I just can't stop laughing. Right? His emotionality and my willingness to see him as the Christ met in the place where only truth can exist, because the truth is that nothing exists. His willingness to entertain it for a second, based on my willingness to extend it, right? There's a giving and a receiving that occurred. The result of that giving and receiving, because it's divine, is laughter. You cannot not replace the temporal denial of the ego with the gifts of God and not laugh, because the sound of heaven is the laughter of children, right? We are God's children. There's a place in you where every problem, every situation that is met miraculously is resolved in laughter. And so in my situation this week that's coming up, when I'm sitting in my circle, I often get spontaneous moments of laughing and whatever, but this is a big one. I haven't had a big one like this for quite some time. So I don't want to put an expectation out there, but I'm expecting a lot of laughter, which will be fun. But you've got to see it as fun. You've got to see the journey into fear as fun, not because it's fun confronting the denial. Nobody likes to do that, but it's fun having the healing. It's fun finally getting rid of a whole load of junk that you've been carrying around for millions of years. And it is millions of years, billions of years, perhaps. It's the denial. It's not the story that contains the symbolic representation. It's actually the denial of God. It's like the idea of the belief, pardon me, in separation. It's like you have to look at the idea of separation. Separation didn't start when I was pulled out of the womb and slapped on the bottom. It didn't start there. It didn't start with me becoming self-aware within this fabric of the dream that I'm a Dave, and the Dave has words and sounds and can breathe and do stuff. It didn't start there. It started well before time and space began. That idea, like Jesus says in the Course, into eternity where all is one, there crept a tiny mad idea at which the Son of God remembered not to laugh, right? Remembered not. And now we're remembering. Okay, through forgiving. Your job is forgiving. You're here for giving. And as you give, you receive. That's why you got to give this away. If you want to keep it, you got to give it away, right? This teaching. But the actual idea of the separation, it's ancient, right? As far as time goes, time is an illusion, but it's ancient. Let's look at it in time for a second. It's billions and billions of years. The fall from grace, the original error, the original sin, whatever you want to look at that as, symbolized in the Bible as the Adam and Eve story, all right? But that story, it's a symbolic representation that you can look at consciously so you can pinpoint yourself in the story. You can put yourself in there and go, oh, I see. This is symbolically representing something that's occurred in mind, not my mind, in mind, that was instantaneously repaired, right? Because it, this is the paradox, because it never happened, it couldn't have happened, right? The belief in separation is a belief in the potential contained within an idea, right? We're sitting in this idea of doing the Course, which is, if you like, reversing a cause and effect, and thus collapsing the possibility for the potential to be dwelt on by you for any particular length of time more than is necessary. All right. You're learning not to repeat errors, hopefully. Okay. But in order to learn that, you've got to take responsibility for the ones that you see yourself making. Right. Any moment that's not truly joyous, anyone that responds to you without true peace and happiness and joyousness, all that sort of stuff. Right. And here's the tough nugget. Jesus says in the course, let those who think of you think of peace. It's like, how the hell am I going to know what others think of me when they think of me? Maybe I should take a poll. I'll hand out little papers and pencils, and everyone, there's peace and then not peace. Tick which one. So it'll be anonymous. But these things are just all points to hold yourself accountable to. It's like, let your words reflect mercy, and, you know, things like that. So, but what is mercy? You know, mercy to someone who's had a tough life is going to be incredibly appreciated. And mercy to someone who's got everything they've ever dreamed of is going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? I don't need mercy. So mercy is a relative thing. But in general, you can tell if your relationships aren't harmonious, it's because I haven't been harmonious first. It doesn't matter who's out there yapping at me or saying whatever and giving me a hard time. It's like, I've asked them for that. That's a figure in my dream. That's a person in my dream that's picked up one of my projections, and they're giving it back to me, because mind is whole. I can't be separate from things I project out there. All that happens is I project it out there as if I could somehow get rid of the stuff I don't like. And all that happens is, because I take my mind with me everywhere I go, I see it everywhere I go, and I try to avoid confrontation with it, right? Rather than to own it and go, oh yeah, that's my thinking about something. Right? And in the defenselessness of that owning, it gets dispelled. I no longer become fearful of it. And it's like, all right, that's done. Right? Otherwise, what are you going to do? Just walk around being fearful of every confrontation you're going to have with everyone for the rest of your life? It's like, no, I'm a crusader. This is the last crusade. The motto of the crusade is listen, learn, and do. And I'm about it. I'm out there. I'm about it. I want to make those confrontations, even if they're a bit ugly, even if they're really ugly, even if they're ones that make me want to run away. You know, it's like there's a meme that goes around sometimes. It'll have some point of conscious reflection, and then it'll say, but I bet it's too early to have a conversation about that. You know, one of these sort of things. And that I bet it's too early to have that conversation, or I bet nobody wants to have that conversation. It's like, that's my mind. I don't want to have the conversation. My mind operates in denial. It's like, it takes a lot of coaxing and a lot of lubrication through being told how wonderful I am as a child of God to get me to want to take any kind of a step for my own greater good in any given direction. If you had everything you needed in the world and you had millions of dollars in the whole, you wouldn't want a Course in Miracles. What are you going to want to do that for? You got a good life. Just enjoy it until it's finished. You know, it's like Jesus says, the wealthy man will never enter the kingdom of heaven. You could push and pull him, and you can lead a horse to water and still not make him drink. He doesn't care. You know. But when you've had a tough life, when you've banged your shins on the, you know, life's thorny byways, it's like you're grateful for an alternative. You don't have big pile of money and servants and all this stuff to get you out of the shitty place. You're just grateful for any alternative, and love is the best alternative there is. But you got to give that love to see it. And I've had people say to me, I don't have any love to give. I'm an empty shell. I feel dead inside. That's not true. That's just the covering over the top. This is a journey of faith. Step up, give some love, and you'll see that you do have it. Because there's going to be an opportunity when you're willing to extend, when you're willing to give through this message, through your own sense of self, through your own beingness, when you're willing to give it whatever, the opportunities are going to be presented to you to do that. And that's going to change your life. It's going to change everything. But you've got to be the one that has the courage to take that leap of faith and say, yes, Lord, I'll do that. I remember when I first started doing the course, and oh, it was probably about the second year or third year when I was with my teacher, Ted, and second year, I think, I met this girl in town that had a hemp store, right? Not the smoking stuff, the material and clothes and things like that, everything made out of hemp. And Ted had been talking about the bring one robe and follow me teaching of Jesus, right? Which is the divestiture teaching. And I was talking to this girl. I can't remember where I met her, at the markets or somewhere, and she had this big, what do you call a roll of cloth, a swath of cloth when it's all wound up. And I just looked at it and I said, could you make a robe out of that? Is there enough there to make a robe? And she goes, what do you mean a robe? And I said, I don't even know what I mean a robe. I said, can you make a robe out of it? And Byron Bay is the sort of place you can wear anything. You can wear a pink tutu in the middle of the day with a top hat. No one's going to blink an eye at you. You know, they're like, it's that eclectic. It's artists and performers, and it's that. Not these days. Now it's more like rich people who want to, you know. But anyway, everything changes. And so she made me this robe, right? I paid her for the hemp and the thing. She made me this robe. And it fit, and it was like a long sleeves. I had pockets and things like that. And I wanted to do the whole give up the world, bring one robe and follow me thing. So I actually think I told Ted about it, and Josie, who was a friend of mine. I said, I'm going to go and stand in town, because the Hare Krishna guys, where the main intersection in town is, it's not a big town, Byron Bay. It's like 5,000 people or something. And then tourism brings the town up to about 11, 12,000 people. But where the main intersection is just down from the headland at the beach. And it's busy. People are like, there's tourist shops and knick-knack shops, coffee shops, and it's like really, really cosmopolitan. And so there's these Hare Krishna guys with their tabla drums or whatever on one side, and they're doing the ching, 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 making a lot of noise and handing out the Bhagavad Gitas and stuff like that. And then there's me, right? And I'm standing on the other side, and I've handwritten these. This is really funny. I've handwritten these. It's not the 20-minute book. We didn't have that. We didn't have the 20-minute books then. We didn't have these to give away. We had something similar to these, but I knew I wanted to make something from my heart, and so I just made a piece of paper, A4 paper, and I folded it up like a little greeting card. Folded it twice over and over. And I wrote stuff, you know, I just wrote declarations and put little hearts and smiley faces and things. And then I got it all Xeroxed off in the office, and I had like 50 or 100 of them, whatever. And I thought, I'm going to stand here in this goddamn stupid looking robe on the corner and just put myself in that whole mental frame of reference, you know, for that teaching from the Bible. I didn't even have underwear on. That's how cool it was, you know. And I'm standing there almost naked in this thing. And I had dreams about it. I had dreams about this robe. And I'm handing out these things. And people are talking to me. People are stopping to talk to me. Not just eclectic other kind of hippie people like me, but tourists and people that have like never had the opportunity to talk to a weird person before. And they're taking these little things off me, and they're reading them in front of me out aloud, some of them, you know, and they're like, there's 100 words on the front and big. And I've had a few people, and they go, did you write this? You know, and I'm like, well, I wrote it, but it's not my stuff. And like I've just think, and I started giving them out. I did that for, I think 3 days or 4 days. I stood there on the street corner all day until I got tired and whatever, I went home. And handed them out. And then in the evening, I'd go back and I'd print out more. And after about 4 days, I kind of knew it was done, right? I kind of knew that whatever that energy was for me to put myself into that thing. And it was confronting. It was really confronting. I felt like an idiot wearing a robe, and everybody's wearing normal clothes. But I knew I had to do it. Something in me just said, you got to do this. You got to, you know, like everything's sort of pointing. So I stood there feeling like a complete twat. And then finally on the third day or whatever, I didn't feel stupid. I felt like I accepted myself as bring one robe and follow me, right? There was an acceptance and an abiding in that thing that happened. And on the last day, oh no, it wasn't on the last day, but I had a few people come up to me and say, there was a good bookshop just down the road called Abraxas Bookshop, and they used to sell A Course in Miracles in there. I had a few people come to me during that 3-4 day period and said, oh, I've been up there and bought the book. You know, because on the back I wrote, if you like this, go and buy A Course in Miracles and start reading whatever. And they come and they said, I bought the book, I'm going to read it, you know, and so that was cool. And then about a year later, maybe, I couldn't tell you exactly how long later, I had some guy come up to me in the street. I wasn't wearing a robe. I gave the robe to another guy. I said, your turn, you wear the robe and go do something. And I had this guy come up to me in the street and he goes, man, I remember you. You gave me a little piece of paper with some stuff on it, written on it, and it changed my life, right? He said, it changed my life, what was written, those few words. And he was really grateful on the whole thing. He goes, I went and bought the Course in Miracles and I've been reading it ever since, you know, and he's doing the lessons and the whole thing. He goes, I've been doing it ever since and it's changed my life. You know, it's like just that one guy made my whole 57 years on earth worthwhile. You know, it was like I did something. I finally did something to help someone else to have a better time rather than just thinking of me, thinking of me. You know, I put myself out there. I felt like an idiot. I did it anyway. And it had such an incredible thing, you know, but you've got to give this away. For each of you, there's going to be some kind of avenue, some kind of door, maybe a hemp robe, I don't know, some kind of door that'll open and you've got to walk through it, right? Because that's the extension of your love. That's the extension of your light. You don't have to write things on a paper. You don't, you know, you see these guys and they put free hugs and people go up and just hug them. And some of them are even blindfolded. I don't know what the deal is with the blindfold, but maybe people feel less intimidated about going for a hug or something. But there's going to be some format, some opening for you to extend your love. And I'm talking love, not just to be helpful, like I'll help Mrs. What's her name, weed her garden or whatever. I mean, that's nice. But I mean in a way that's recognized as love, in a way that's recognized full on, just like full on love to strangers, to people and things like that. It happens to me all the time now. It's just like today I had a moment. I'm sitting in my shop today. I can't even remember what the thing I did this morning, the tattoo I did this morning was. Oh God, I can't remember. But I just remember, and I was talking to this girl doing her tattoo, and I was just overcome with so much love and gratitude for what the Course has given me, what Jesus has given me, and for how it was that I was able to engage with her in conversation, which I wouldn't have been able to do 25 years ago. I would have joined her in some stupid story about whatever was going on, and it wouldn't have led to anything. It wouldn't have enlightened any moment. It would have just been this like going nowhere, dead end chit chat. You know, it's like you have to talk. So let's talk about good stuff. Let's talk about stuff that's helpful. Let's talk about things that are actually going to change lives. Actually, right? Now you can counter that off and go, oh, well, there is no world. Whose life am I changing? Boing. It's not that you're changing the life on the surface. The surface is just the story. You have to participate in that anyway. You got to eat, you got to pay your bills, you got to, right? So it's like Jesus said, I've come that you may have life and have it more fully, right? Now, I've come that you may have life is the eternal life of the gift of God, right? But to have that more fully can only be experienced in the world. To have that more fully, you got to be about it. I'm about my Father's business. My Father's business is love. That's it. I'm not here to fix you. I'm not here to help you get better or whatever. I don't see you like that. I see you as the Christ. And that's what I want to talk about. That's what I want to meet you at. That's where I want to hold this conversation at. We're divine. We are divine. It's like, how insane is that? We are beings of a divine nature. Let that in. Let that in. I'm a divine being. You're a divine being. A divine being. I'm not this body doomed to die, get old and wrinkly and smell if I don't wash it. That's not me. I'm this whole other thing going on that's symbolically misrepresented on the surface, but down under, it's like that's where it's at. Beyond the veil, that's where it's at. I'm divine. And so are you. That's what I was right on those little things I was handing out on the street corner. You're a child of God. You're free. You don't have to put up with all this bullshit. The bullshit's the stuff you made up yourself to try and cope. Stop trying to cope with the world and let it fall in a heap. Let yourself fall in a heap and have an experience. Stop trying to control everything. Stop trying to make it how you want it. It's not your home. Let go and let God. Does that sound okay, Anna?
It sounds wonderful. If I could only do it.
No. See, you just denied it again. Ready? If I can only do it. What are you going to do? You would have to not be divine and liberated and free and excellent in order to have to try to only do it. You see that? I'm telling you, you're that now. You are divine now. There's nothing to do. Live your truth. Walk your truth. You're divine now, right now. You're free. You're not an Anna. You're not an Angela or a Tina or a Dave. We're not these things. These are avatars. These are just these vessels for our experience here. Scientific instruments. You're free. The idea that you think you would have to do something to experience that is what it is that's stopping you from experiencing that now. Pretty funny, isn't it? That's why mind training is required. Mind training, mind training, mind training. It's like, get it in there. I have it on good authority that I'm about the slowest learner in the continuum, so you guys should be okay. Sometimes I see how much of a slow learner I am, and I kick myself. It's just like, holy cow, I'm dumb. I'm like the thickest divine being on the planet. Maybe I'm a first lifer. You know, one of my favorite quotes, I know you know it, Tina. One of my favorite quotes is by Jiddu Krishnamurti, and he said, enlightenment is for the very, very brave or the very, very stupid. If you're trying to work out which one you are, you're the very, very stupid. It's funny. You got to laugh at it. What's happening with you, Angela?
I'm very, very stupid.
Yeah, well, join the club. This is the very, very stupid.
Very, very stupid. Yeah. Yeah. Where do you begin? Well, yeah. I guess I get it. I get it a lot. And then, an example was yesterday. had to go to this. It's just like a thing that I have going on. And I went into this hospital building, which I have this thing about, always have done. I know it's a story. And I was fine. And then I sat down and it was like, bang. Inside my head was like a boxing match. It was ego. It was Holy Spirit sort of bang like this. And I was sat there and I thought, well, right, I'll breathe. I'll bring it down. But this is a recurring thing with me. I go so far along and I'm just, as I say, I get it. I can see it. I bring it forward, and after it's just, yeah, it's great. And then it's back again. And I feel like I'm prepared for it, but it's back. And it's just like, ooh.
So you'll see these things come around again and again and again, right? It's good that you've seen it. It's good to be able to identify your cycles. But if you're trying to fix it or heal it or deal with it in your thinking, it's your thinking that's making the problem in the first place. And you're trying to fix it with more of your thinking, right? The Course is telling you your thoughts don't mean anything.
I know.
Stop trying to sort out what you think is the problems in your life with your thoughts that are making those problems in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Get it?
Yes.
Right.
I do get it. Now I get it. But it's like, as you all understand that, it's like a veil of whoosh. And it's from that extreme to that extreme. It's like a flash of both.
Good. Now, here's the thing. You've seen your cycle. You've seen what you do and how you respond.
Yeah.
Okay. All I'm going to tell you is this. Don't adjust to your pain.
Yeah.
Don't try to fix it. Don't try to bring yourself out of the madness and the chaos and whatever. Give it to the Holy Spirit. Now, that looks like a particular thing, right? In me anyway. In you, it's like we're talking about an action of the mind, so it's hard to talk about it. How you carry on up here is how you carry on up here. But it's a stepping back, right? It's like, oh, I see that I'm crazy. I see that I'm sitting here having this boxing match with my own thoughts and then using other of my own thoughts to try and negotiate a calm in the boxing match, right? I can't do anything with that. I'm going to step back and let God do it, right? Now, that's going to be a leap of faith. You're going to have to sit there and pray. And however that looks, but it's got to come from the heart. And it's not going to come from the heart until you're sick and tired of not praying, right? When you're done with that cycle, when you're truly done with it, you'll heal from it. Until then, you're just looking at it, telling a story about it, looking at it. Maybe I'll do it next time, whatever, looking at it. But there's a point where all of a sudden it's like alcoholics. I'm never drinking again. And then they go out drinking. I'm never drinking again, until finally they wind up at AA, right? But it's exactly the same thing. So I'm never doing this boxing match again. Until finally you give it to God, until finally you give it to the Holy Spirit. Now that's going to be the prayer of the heart. The prayer of the heart is when you mean it. The prayer of the heart is where you've accepted already, or where you're willing to accept already, that it has already been healed, right? Not that there's something to heal in you, because you're perfect, you're divine. There's nothing that needs healing in you. But what has already been healed through Christ's resurrection in you is what you're accepting in place of the nonsense of the boxing match going on in your head, right? You don't want the boxing match healed. You want to accept the healing that's already been offered to you as the resurrection in place of the boxing match. Don't try to fix what never was, accept what is. Okay? And in that, abide with the Holy Spirit and let the healing happen, and it will. But you're going to have to sit there and breathe through it when the emotionality of it starts to come up in you. And it will come up in you. It's coming up in you now. You can feel stuff. It's like it's ridiculous, right? It's like that emotionality is in you now. You don't have to wait till you go to the hospital again to activate it. You don't have to, because everything will activate it, really. Anything.
Mm.
Right? Just think of any kind of situation that doesn't bring you peace. There it is again in a different form. It's the one idea of separation represented through something that you can make tangible so you can see what you're doing in your mind. But it's the same problem, one solution. I think I'm separate from God here. Solution is I'm not. Don't try to fix the problem as I perceive it, but let Jesus show me that I actually have no problem. He's done it. In that, I resonate and I harmonize with a frequency of association with the sonship rather than thinking that I'm out here fixing problems.
Mm.
Right? Everything is a symbolic representation of your relationship with God. Everything. Everything is a symbolic representation of your relationship with God, which is the whole. Right? It shows up in symbols such as hospitals and other things so that you can understand it. All right? If you're a stunt car driver and that was your thing, it would show up in stunt car kind of situations so you can understand it, right? But human beings were basically all the same. We have pretty similar scope of perception. We all eat, we all breathe, we all wear clothes, we all understand interacting, we all, we're not complicated really. We like to think we're special, but we're not. But we all have the same thing. So it's like when you're telling a story about anything, it's any story. It's the one story. It's the story of human, not Angela human, not Tina human, just human, right? It's the human condition. My human condition always wants to adjust to things that it doesn't like or that it has a story about. I project it out there, I don't like this place, or I'd rather be at some other place, whatever. And because all my thoughts are powerful, I have an emotional response, which is the effect, right? Thought is cause, the effect is the emotional response that it has. I have an emotional response. Some of my emotional responses are based on my thinking I like, and some of them I don't like. And I try to project out the ones I don't like. And then when I walk into situations that reflect them, I get all antsy about it. And I sit there having a boxing match with myself in my head and telling myself stories. Right? But this is a course in miracles, not a course in trying to sort myself out. Okay? All you need to do is remember to step back. That's it. Yeah. I will step back and let him lead the way. I will step back and let God take care of this. Right? When you're honest about that and when you really want that, then he will. Right? But that honesty, I mean, man, I've lost track of how many times I've sat in prayer and asked for healing and then nothing happens. I haven't really meant it. All I really want is alleviation from the bad symptoms. I don't want the dream to end entirely, because then what fun am I going to have, But Jesus is saying, give up the world in its entirety and follow me, not just give up bits of it. Mm-hmm. It's like, this is your salvation. This is your release from time and space. This is your release from the third dimension we're talking about here. If you still think you've got something in the world that you got to achieve, something you got to do, something that matters, man, you're in the wrong Zoom meeting. It's like, this is salvation. This is where it's all or nothing. So learning to be a crusader, learning to be that listen, learn, and do kind of gung-ho, Krishnamurti stupid person, that's what we're about. And that's okay. That's perfect. It's like some of the situations I've been in, I'm not going to tell my baked bean story again. I tell that one a lot. But some of the situations I've been in have been so in my face and confronting. And it's like you recognize it as like, oh, this again. You recognize the energy of it. It's like a signature. It's like an emotional signature. And it's like, it might be a different situation, a different person, a different whatever, but it feels the same way. You know, like betrayal or jealousy or envy, all of those things. They all feel the same way. It's like, oh man, this shit again. It's a different person, but it's this again. Or fear. I don't like this place or this event or whatever. It feels the same way. You'll know how honest you were in your prayer by the next time you feel it. Right? If you are truly honest, you won't feel it again. Or you'll feel it to a lesser degree and you'll go, wow, this would have scared the shit out of me at one time. And now I don't really care. I'm dealing with it. Look at me. I'm walking through it and I'm not even boxing matching myself. And eventually it'll taper off. What happens in time and space is the miracle is instantaneous. The moment you ask for a miracle, you got it. But you can only become aware of its effects in you according to your cycles in time and space. Okay? According to the next time it comes around. And then you'll see that you've had the miracle. Right? You may have a release. You may have the laughter and the whole thing. But the next time it comes around, and then you'll be like, I haven't been upset about anything for ages. And you'll struggle to find what it was that you used to be upset about. I can't even tell you stuff. This stuff I know that in my head I would have once had these horrible stories of like fearful, and now I can't even find any of it. Mm-hmm. Even some of my good stories in salvation I can't find anymore. I have to go back and read my own book, which I don't want to do. But it's like I'm returning my world to God in exchange for the reality that I have as my creative reality. Otherwise, I'm just going to sit in the boxing match over and over and over. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Good. I like to harp on about these things a little bit because sometimes it's hard to hear it. I know I used to sit and listen to Ted for ages. And sometimes I could hear what he was saying, but it didn't quite click in, you know, like I could hear, it was like grasping at something that was almost in reach. And then, what did he say? It's gone, you know, and then you miss it. But you never really miss anything. You always hear everything. Tina, you have a new do-rag. What's going on with you? I like that one. It's like blue or something.
It's just black.
It's not, it looks blue on my computer, like navy blue.
It looks a little blue on mine too. I think it's my light doing some stuff.
No, okay.
Well, thank you.
How's our avocado tree? The avocado tree is a surrogate child, you know.
Do you see it? It's like, so like, it's insane.
I can sort of see it.
I should go over there one day. It's like crazy. There was like 3 leaves yesterday and there's like 7 today.
Wow.
It's
Put
crazy.
a little bit of, plants like fertilizer too, not just water. Eventually that plant's going to suck all the nutrients out of that bucket of dirt and it's not going to grow any bigger, right? So you'll notice, because you're a caring mother, but you have to feed it as well, right? At least 4 times a year, you can get those little Osmocote things and you sprinkle them around and every time you water it, they'll put a little bit of nutrient in there.
Oh, I have those little sticks that you stick into the thing. Is that the same thing?
Okay. I don't know. I don't know what they are.
Yeah, they're little sticks, and they're supposed to be something food, like nourishment.
Okay. Yeah,
So,
well, plant food, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
so it's doing well.
Indoor plants take a little bit of care, especially
It,
growing an avocado inside. That's good.
well, you know what? I got the
Anyway,
dirt from outside. Oh,
yep.
and little things are coming up. So I thought that maybe I should throw those things away, but I'm gonna see what happens with them. The
Weeds.
little are they weeds? I don't know. I'm gonna see. I was throwing them out, little white things. I thought maybe it's mold or something, but
Fungus or weeds or something.
it looks kind of, I don't know. We'll see.
We'll
But
see.
yeah. I'm gonna let
What
it
else
be
is going
miraculous.
on? Anything
Um,
new?
I'm liking what you're saying. I just don't know. I'm feeling really good about that, extending the love. That feels really sweet. I
It
know
pushes
that.
so many buttons.
Oh, I don't know. It feels really good. I mean, I'm just like looking over. I don't know. I kind of live in a sweet place, I think. So it just feels really good.
Right.
That whole like giving it away. But I was going through something yesterday, which I can't really bring up in my mind, but I remember it being pretty full on, and it felt like, I think it had to do with my brother. Just a realization. I knew it wasn't about the situation, and it's always disproportionate to what's actually happening, like my anger about it. So I always know it's really not that. And since being with you, I used to just go, everything is projection of my mind. So I'm always like meeting my own mind, but bringing it right up to my relationship with God has been really, really helpful. And yesterday something was happening, and it was that whole love thing. It sort of came back to I want there to be a spot where withholding of my love is justified. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
it feels really good. Like, and I'm meeting people, and I have been meeting people where initially it was difficult to love them, but that sort of had felt like it's been healed. Like, really beautiful. Like, I have a Hare Krishna friend who, that whole relationship, like for the last year, has been it hasn't even quite been a year, where it was so challenging at first. Like, I was so jealous of her, and just like,
Yeah.
it just was the way that it all worked out. It was just crazy. And I had to really look at all of the things that it was bringing up for me. But I knew I had to hold that relationship close to me. And she kind of wouldn't let me go either. But it's been so beautiful, the healing of it. We'd like talk like 10 times a day, like we're constantly messaging one another. And it's like really, really beautiful. But this thing that was going on yesterday, like I said, there's been opportunities where I can see where that's been healed, like this extension of love has been healed, where it wasn't so easy to love this person, but there's spots where the justification to withhold love is really strong.
Right.
And I was praying about that, and I was like, I don't want the situation. I know it's not the situation to change. That's not going to make me feel any better. It's that I really want to be able to sincerely like love. Like, I really want to. And that's what's painful, is that's what feels painful, is this
Right.
contraction of this love. I don't know. When I was praying, it just really just felt like I want to be able to. And I've got this thing going on in my mind that says, this is a place where God is not, kind of like, this is a place where it's okay to not. So anyway, that's what I've been feeling. Or the last couple of days, a couple of situations where that has just had to be my prayers, and I really don't feel to extend this love, and I really want to. And I want to be honest about removing the blocks to that, that.
Right. So your mind is
sense.
split.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't know if that
So you need a miracle. That's
exactly.
all.
And that's it. That's what I really loved. I don't know who you were talking to. Maybe it was Doug, but that whole just very, very clearly, like, I cannot figure this out in my mind. Like, it's not going to happen in this mind. Can't conceptualize this.
No.
It just has to be miraculous.
It has to be miraculous.
So that's been my prayer. So when you're talking about just the extension of love, just felt really like permission, like really felt really good to hear that. So that felt like a nice
Right.
little reflection of my mind because it just feels so much sweeter.
Sometimes you have to be kind of pushed a bit, you know, because the whole thing with the course, it's such a study, you know. I mean, look, there's my course. It's 2 books, you know, but it's like, it's just like this study, and you tend to become very introspective about everything, and a bit of a bookworm kind of, you know, like you tend to want to do everything in your head. And when you go outside, this was me, right? So when I go outside, and still today sometimes, because like I don't like to cast my pearls before swine, but when I'm outside and talking with people, and at work talking with people, I want to extend my love, right? Because, and it's not that I want to, it just, you know, it just flows. You just be yourself and it just flows. But there is times where there's this sense of don't push it. You know, it's like I'll hear myself check myself in and go,
Yeah.
you know, because it's too much sometimes. I had a girl say to me once online, she said, oh no, she was talking to a friend about me, and I happened to cut, her friend tagged me or something, and probably not on purpose, and I thought, oh, who's tagged me something? And they were talking about me, and they said, oh, he's got so much vibe for one person, something like that.
Your whole vibe.
The whole vibe was too much for one person in one body. Oh, that was it. So much vibe in one body. And I'm like, whoa, it really made me realize, because to me, I'm just me. But it really made me realize that human beings like to keep everything contained and not too crazy until they get drunk and then they go crazy, whatever. But and then there's this kind of thing called normal, where you're a normal person. But when you just love unconditionally, that's not normal, because the normal that the human condition is designed to maintain is the denial of unconditional love. So it's like it's not normal love, and or not special love. And so you sort of realize that sometimes it's not so much that your pearls would be cast before swine. It's just you realize that people don't know how to take you. You know, there's that crazy guy that always wants to hug everybody and say, I love you and
The
whatever.
crazy
It's
girl.
like, right, exactly. You're just going to end up buying a bunch of cats and, you know, sitting at home.
No, I'm out there in the world. I'm out there in the street.
No. We've done that. That didn't work either. So, but it's a true thing. It's a true thing. Sometimes you just do want to sort of like step it back a little and feel the waters, you know, and just see whatever. But if you find a place where you don't want to extend love out of grievance or out of judgment or something like that, you know, then you need a miracle.
Well, there was there's a guy in my neighborhood. He's slowly like losing things. And I like to, whenever I see him, like just touch him, you know what I mean? Like, he can't really, he's on a walker. So I see him all the time. So I like touch him. I'll just hold him. He can't really speak. I'll just hold him. And there's been like one time recently where I didn't want to take the time, you know what I mean? So, and it was just interesting. I would kind of watch myself where I just didn't want to take the time. So he was walking and he walks very slow and I just held back. And I was like, that's really interesting. You know, I mean, I really did not want to extend anything to him at that, you know, I mean, that was just one moment. And, you know, next moment I saw him again and it was cool to like be with him. But I was like, why is that? You know, where I just felt like,
Yeah, you know, who knows?
Anyway.
You can get caught up micromanaging everything with the course, you know, and looking at everything in like the minutest detail.
Yeah.
It's easier if you just stay with the grievances and the judgments and the things that really piss you off.
That's easy enough, yeah.
Right. Otherwise, you know, you just tend to try to break everything down, and that's just ego anyway. Why this, why that, rather than just being yourself.
Yeah,
but
you know, because what happened was like guilt wanted to come up behind it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, if it brings up guilt, that's good.
That's ego. Oh, no, is it? Okay.
Right.
Something
Well,
to do.
you want to expose guilt,
Okay.
right? It's not like there's a situation happening and you can respond in a certain way which manufactures guilt, right? The guilt is in you already. It's hiding.
There it is.
Right. Right. So if you've seen a situation, I mean, nothing happens for no purpose. I don't like to micromanage things too much. I usually wait until they kick me in the ass a bit. They come around a few times and then boom, oh, there's that again, you know. But under the surface, if you've seen how it is your thing and then you want to feel guilty for something, it's like you want to feel guilty.
Yeah, there it is.
But I have that guilt because I want it. I'm not a victim of anything. It's like, holy cow, I want to feel guilty.
Yeah. Like
because I can use that idea of
a certain way. Yeah.
Right. That idea of guilt is a weapon I use against God so that I don't have to be God's son. I'm not perfect, you know. It's like I'm not perfect. That symbolic representation of that guilt with that guy is the guilt that you have, that you're holding against God. It's like, here, God, watch me put a knife to my own throat.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that's what you're trying to do to God.
Yeah.
If I can't be God, then, you know, I'm not going to be your son either. That's the whole thing. And guilt is the weapon. It's like, it's pretty ugly. Right.
That's it.
Right. There's the tip of an iceberg.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, I'm going to go and have some dinner. Are you guys all good? No one's going to go jump off a bridge or anything? Anna, you good? We're going to do a big light session on Saturday. Oh, no, hang on Sunday we'll do it. On Saturday, I have a real estate open house until 11:45. So if I'm a little bit late to Thingo, you'll know why.
That's your Saturday? Okay.
Phone call. Yeah, my Saturday, I've got a real estate open house here from 10 to 11:45 or something. So I told her until 11:30, but anyway, whatever it is, it is.
Well, I don't know what time you normally join, but okay.
Well, 12, but if there are people milling around and hanging around here, you know, people like to chat and ask you questions about the plumbing and things like that. So it may drag on, I don't know. But the last open house, we had nobody turned up. So that was, I had the wrong real estate agent. I knew it from the start and I didn't listen. I didn't listen to my own internal voice. So, anywho, Angela, you good? Are you doing your lessons?
I am good, yes, thank you. I am doing my lessons. Mm-hmm.
What lesson are you on?
Well, I got to 192 and I think Anna did the similar thing, went back and started again.
Oh.
I don't know why. I just felt as if maybe
no integrity.
Something. I just don't know. I just knew I had to go back. And I am.
Hold your arm up like that. All right, you've got plenty of space there.
Uh-huh.
See how I've got the word. See how I've got the word front.
And yes, I've done it. I write all the time on my arm. Right. So when I'm out and I work and I can go like that, but within half an hour, it rubs off. So I have little sticky things. And I put little sticky things. If I open my bag, it's hanging on my bag. And then the next thing is that's disappeared. So, but I am getting.
Go to the store and buy an oil marker.
An oil marker.
It's like a Nico pen. Do you have Nico pens where you are? We have these things called Nico pens. And you write it on your skin like this one. I have to remember to take my truck in for a service tomorrow. So I've written the word truck on my arm.
Right.
Right. Otherwise I'll forget. But I used to, when I did my lessons the first year, I got to about less than 260 and realized how little integrity I had had with doing the lessons actually.
Yeah.
And I made a decision the next year I was going to start January the 1st, and I would write it on my arm every day with one of these pens that wouldn't come off. Every time I'd look at my arm, I would stop and I'd do my lesson.
Yeah.
And the difference between the two results from the first year to the second, incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
The second year, I got totally activated because I made the effort. The second year, it's like I activated myself. Something happened in here and just went kapow.
Yeah.
And I connected, you know, like come in, join us on the weekend Zoom if you can, like Saturday and Sunday, and we'll go through connecting with stuff, right? You've got to learn to connect with what you're reading. That's where it gets in.
Yeah.
If you're reading it like you're trying to read a magazine at the supermarket or waiting for the doctor or whatever, you're only superficially reading it. You're not really connecting.
Yeah.
It's like, it's hard to connect with what the course says because the ego doesn't want you to hear it. The ego would always, you know.
Yeah, I do find I do watch all the videos more than once of the lessons, and I do find it very helpful watching the videos, so I don't miss anything. But yes, I will try and join in. Yeah, I will.
There's an app too. I don't know if that's helpful.
There's an app.
There's an app. Yeah, I use an app that with an alarm, like every 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, whatever.
Yeah, you said that.
There is a pretty good one that follows along with the lessons, and when it says 5 times a day, and then you just set it with your time zone and it'll give you the thing.
Yeah, I'll message you. I mean, I've tried a couple and I really like the one that I use. I don't know what kind of phone you. Anyway, yeah, I'll message you. I'll send you the.
Please, yes.
Yeah. I found it helpful.
Yes, that'd be good. Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, good. All right, so I'll see you guys on Saturday.
God willing, and the creek don't rise.
Thank you.
Anna, do you know how to knit?
No, I don't know how to knit.
Oh, somebody in our little group knows how to knit. I need a new beanie. This one's too little. My other one's too tight because I think it went in the washer dryer thing. I've lost my green one. I've lost my alpaca one. I might have to go down to senior citizens' house and home and get them to have a beanie. I know they're lovely down there. So, but it may take 12 months to get it. That's the only trouble. So, all right.
You love you. Not ask. All right.
Peace. Oh.
All right. Anna's gone. Angela's gone. All right. Bye.